George Kotelly was born to two immigrants from Albania in South Boston on July of 1931. He was an only child, which was very rare during the time. His neighborhood consisted of families with anywhere between 11 and 16 children. He grew up in an immigrant neighborhood with Irish, Lithuanian, Italian, and Polish families, which he said made him very tolerant to other nationalities. The members of his neighborhood were very welcoming and friendly, and even the mothers that could not speak English would still open their doors and look after him and the other children. He lived in a triple-decker with another Albanian family, who became like family to him. During the Great Depression, his father only made $12 a week at the local diner that he owned called Joe's Spot. They wore clothes until they literally fell off their backs, and if their shoes got holes in them, they put pieces of cardboard inside of them to make them wearable. He said that they used everything until it was literally unusable and that a penny was a very big deal. Very few of his friends went to college besides him. During the late 40s and early 50s, the boys of Southie were encouraged to be a fireman, policeman, or a longshoreman, while the girls were encouraged to be nurses, secretaries, or teachers, if anything at all. George was the only kid on his block to go to college and went to Tufts College for engineering in Boston. He was a commuting student that had to get up at 6 every morning and take public transportation to school. He did not get home until 6 in the evening and then did homework until 10. This was 5.5 days a week, as they had Saturday afternoons and Sundays off, but his father used this as an opportunity to have him work in the store. After college, he was drafted to the Korean War. He had basic training in Virginia in the middle of winter and then traveled to California to be deployed, but a ceasefire was signed. Because he didn't go to war, he is sent to Albuquerque, New Mexico to work at Kirtland Air Force Base, which was a Q clearance, a step above top secret, because they were working with the atomic bombs. The Cold War was happening during this time in the mid-50s, and George was working to help America have the higher nuclear proliferation. He worked on B-36 and B-52 bombers and would work on fake atomic bombs that were exact replicas but didn't contain uranium. His job was to fly to Southern California and track the flight of the bombs from different heights and under certain weather conditions and make bombing tables for the bombers to use. He returned to South Boston and met Shirley Kotelly in 1958, and they married in 1959. During this time period, the Vietnam War and the Civil Rights Movement were happening. George said that as a veteran, he supported the war and disliked the way the soldiers were being treated. He also said that he supported the Civil Rights Movement, but only the nonviolent way, like the ideas of Martin Luther King Jr., and not those of Malcolm X. George and Shirley settled down and started a family in Lexington, Massachusetts, while he worked at a company called RCA. Throughout the 60s, he worked on technology that was on the first Apollo mission, again contributing to the space race, competition between the Cold War rivals USA and the Soviet Union. Once all 4 of his children, Ken, Bill, Doug, and Joanne, were born, he began writing for an engineering magazine and traveled around the world, interviewing names like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. In 1986, the same year as Ronald Reagan, one of George's favorite presidents, he was nominated and entered into the book Who's Who in America. Today he lives in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, and spent his time doting on his 6 granddaughters and 1 grandson.